So, as with the other pictures that we share, people have to go up the AHA curve, and that's what we talked about on the last slide. Okay, and that's one of the things that really, takes time. Now, it's not just the people that have to go up the AHA curve, it's the teams as well. And you'll notice that I had the teams in the boxes there with the X's and things like that as they were moving up the curves. Those working in the product program, line management area, they all have to go through the AHA curve as well. And then finally, the entire organization, if they're truly going to transform from classic waterfall traditional methodologies over to agile lean methodologies, it's going to take time. I don't know how many of you have read Sutherland and Schwaber's book on software in 30 days, but in the back of that, they talk about it will take up to 5 years to transform a company. And I think what they had in mind, without explicitly stating it, is that you have to do the transformation in all 4 boxes at once. Okay? So, the level of training, coaching, mentoring to help everyone in the teams and the products and programs and the portfolios and executives up that curve, up the AHA curve, is a major commitment and investment on the part of the organization. You cannot delegate this. You cannot say, from let's say an organizational perspective, we'll delegate this down to the teams. This is just a team level thing. We don't need to change. We're just going to do team and individual transformation down on the front lines. Guess what? That doesn't work, because what I have found is you cannot touch one of these boxes for transformation without touching the other 3. It's like impossible. So when you're thinking about scaling, which is mostly a tool set view for the product program corner, those don't work unless you're doing the transformation up the AHA curve in all 4 boxes. The third area, and this one I think I had mentioned, is that the original framework comes from the West Point Military Academy leadership framework that they used in the early 1990s. And originally they had vision, strategies, projects, and tactics. And most people don't know that Newt Gingrich, who led the Republican Revolution at that time, took over both the House and the Senate and made life miserable for Bill Clinton. Most people don't know that Newt used this leadership framework to organize the entire Republican Party and to get the voters out. He used this to get it done. Now, Ted and I, we adapted this over time to vision, strategy, projects, and tasks when we used to look at things from a project view. But in the end, it really comes down to people and the things that they do. Are they linked to the vision and strategies at every level of the organization, all the way up to the CEO's office? The line that's in between vision and strategy and people and tasks, that line represents the disconnect that we have seen in absolutely every organization we have ever worked with together in the last 25 years. There is always a disconnect between vision and strategy and people and tasks. Our point is that you need to be able to bridge that disconnect in order to be successful. And so we're going to talk about a number of tools that we use in order to bridge that gap. Now, the vision for any change or transformation is undercommunicated by a factor of 10. And that was a quote from Dr. Cotter, who writes for Harvard Business Review and has his own consulting company and works a lot in the area of vision. This means that the disconnect exists because the leadership in the company fails to communicate the vision for the change 10 times more than they think they need to. If you're going to change an organization, you need to consistently communicate over and over and over and over again the leadership's vision for the change, why it's so important, and answer the question of, hey dude, what's in it for me, for the people who are doing the tasks at the front line. If an organization does that and succeeds in doing that, they will already have won the transformation battle, just if they can get this part correct. But again, this is just one of 17 areas that we need to focus on when transforming, scaling, rolling out, and governing agile organizations. And again, we've got the what we call VSPT, Vision, Strategy, People, and Tasks, in every box. So every person on the team needs to make sure that their personal why, their purpose for being there, aligns with the team's vision and strategy, what they're trying to get done. You know, the people on the team need to be cross-functional, T-shaped people that can work together and agree with the vision for the team. And that vision for the team should align with the product owner's vision for the product that we're trying to create. And they need to align with the program vision and the line manager vision and the business owner vision up there in the product box. And it's the job of the Agile coach to help coach the team level facilitators in keeping the vision front and center, coaching the product owners to keeping the vision front and center. And we actually, when we get into culture, you'll see this. We actually take the vision from abstract, vision, mission, purpose, core values, attitudes, and we translate those eventually, along with purpose, we translate those into goals and objectives. So you're moving from abstract to concrete. So ultimately, everything should link up to the level above it, because most organizations are still hierarchical. I don't care how flat your organization is, most people don't report to the CEO or to the C-level. They're reporting much further down in the organization, especially for large organizations. So people need to align their visions, and the product owners need to align their visions with the overall vision of their department, their division, their part of the company, all the way up to the overall vision for the entire company. If those visions aren't in alignment, then there is a lot of work that has to be done to help the individuals and teams come up the curve so that they can actually be in alignment. This fourth tile is extremely powerful. As I mentioned in the last slide, you need to have clear vision, strategies, people, and tasks at every level. So here in the middle, you'll see executive VSPT, senior management VSPT, program VSPT, project VSPT, team VSPT. Some companies don't use projects anymore. They just go from program to team. However you're set up, whatever. And then the personal VSPT. Most companies are able to cascade that vision. When we go through the Flow Certified Professional training, we really unpack this, especially when we're talking about dilution. If you only lose 10% per level here, by the time you're to the team, you've already lost like 30, 40, or even 50% of the original intent. And so that's why the visions at every level have to be crystal clear in order for this to work, and in order for your company to have any hope of being able to deliver the value to their customers that they want to deliver, and that will make them a sustainable organization in the long term. You'll notice that we have one in a circle going down as well. You need to cascade the one thing. There was an real estate executive that built a huge real estate empire by learning the power of the one thing. What's the one thing that if our organization did it in the next 12 months, it would grow us by leaps and bounds? I believe he had like 1,000% growth rate for an insanely long period of time. The power of the one thing is that he would sit down at the beginning of the year and have 25 items. If we did these 25 things, we would make a jump to the next level of performance. Well, he would take those 25 and cut it by 80% and just have 5 things. And then he'd put the list aside and come back maybe a day or two later and go through the list again, cut it by 80% again, and identify the one thing. And that became the vision for the company for that year, the one thing that they need to deliver. And he was able to effectively cascade that throughout the organization without losing the fidelity of the message between each level. So the message was clear top to bottom. Now, on the left-hand side here, I've never seen any organization yet that I've ever worked with do this well. And that's communicating a one thing back up through the organization. And you notice the dominoes there, and in the Flow Certified Professional training, we actually share a video about how you have this really, really tiny little wafer thin small domino, and it knocks over a succession of dominoes, not very many, and that little wafer can knock over a huge block that weighs over 100 kilos that's about chest high to the guy in the video. And that's really showing and demonstrating it doesn't take much of something to be communicated back up the food chain in order for it to have huge impact. And BHAGs, if you have not read Good to Great by Jim Collins, that's Big Hairy Audacious Goals. And what we've been doing with the teams in their retrospectives is over time, we would identify, hey, if we communicate this back to the executives so that if they did this one thing for us, it would enable us as a team to get to the next level of performance. We started doing that, and we started communicating those back up the food chain. And so we tried to do that on a quarterly basis, and after the 6 sprints, we would look at all the retrospectives that we had, and as a team we would dot vote. We would discuss and then dot vote, okay, of all of these, what's the one thing? And then that's what we would hand off back to the executives, giving them the ability to look at, oh, hey, if we did this, then it would benefit this team. And if the teams are coming up with let's say one each, but they're all matching. That helps the executives. If they've got 100 teams and they get 101 things, they got to go through it and decide, of those 101 things, what's the one thing that we can do? And most likely they would rank it by value or by what's the consistent message that's coming through from the teams. And so in that way, it gives the executives a new tool to be able to get feedback on their vision, get feedback on their one thing, on their VSPT that they've communicated down through the organization. And it's a way for them to have a new channel of information on which they can make really good decisions for, hopefully, for the organization.